I heard you want the code.
Hello everybody, and welcome to our first episode of a Roblox Studio scripting tutorial series. In this episode, we're gonna about how things in our game, values, objects, services, and all that jazz is accessed via scripts. So, let's say, for instance, we have a part in our workspace and it's called test part. Let's also say we have a folder in our workspace with some values in it. How does a script reach from, let's say, the server script service? So we'll insert a script here. How would this script reach to this test part, for instance? So basically, you'll find that most things throughout the game under a service are reached through dots. And that'll make sense in a second here. I'll show you how that works. So, for example, let's say we had our test part and we wanted to change its color to red, or from red to, let's say, a blue color, something like electric blue. When we join the game. So to do this, you would have to first get a reference to your workspace service. In order to do that, you can just simply type, let's do workspace service equals game get service workspace, just like that. And then you would have a reference to your workspace, and you could use this variable, this name here, and this could be anything. I could name it WSS for workspace service if I wanted to. Or what I would usually do in a more formatted way, I would do an underscore because it's a service, and I would just put W. And that would be my reference to workspace. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this is a global variable in a sense. Within this script, it's a global variable. Most of the time, since we don't have any functions or anything right now where we really need this to be a global variable, and since our services, I usually call them all outside of any functions. And this, what I'm saying right now, may not make any sense, but later on, you'll see what I mean. So anyway, to turn it to a local variable, we just type local space, whatever name we want to name our variable. And then this is how we get the service workspace, just like this, game get service workspace. Now, let's say we wanted to get our test part. So how would we go from this script here to this test part? We'd simply do another local variable. So let's say local test part equals underscore W, and then wait for child test part. And what this is doing is it's basically, it's going through our reference to workspace. So this is workspace. Think of this as your workspace, this variable here. And then it is waiting for the child test part. The reason that we wait for child upon startup is because everything takes a second to load into your game. So if I were to just write, for instance, if I were to just write w.testPart, that might work, but the problem is that it won't work every time, depending on your player's computer speed, their processing speed, whatever. the test part might not be loaded in when this script runs. Therefore, you'll receive an error down in your output saying something like attempt to index workspace with nil or something like that. And that's because the test part wasn't loaded in when this script ran. So we're just going to say wait for child test part. And then let's say we wanted to change one of its properties. For this instance, we're going to do the brick color. So to do that, we'll just say test part dot brick color equals brick color dot, oh, and there we go. There's a blue right there. So we'll say dot blue brackets, just like that. And now you'll see that if I test and play the game, this part, which is right now red, it will go to blue. So we'll test, and now it's blue, as you see. So that all works, and that is how you get from a script through a service to your part. Now let's do something a little more challenging. Let's say our test part was in our replicated storage, and we want to move it from the replicated storage to the workspace and then change its color. So what we would do instead is we can keep our workspace reference, and we'll just simply make a reference to our replicated storage, which is right here. Game get service, replicated storage, and then let's say local test part template equals _rs wait for child test part, because again, it might not be loaded in there before the script runs. So we wait for the child and we give a reference to the test part. And so now we want to clone it and bring it to our workspace. So to do that, we would simply say, let's say local clone part. And you can name this anything you want. You could put any words in here. You could put anything in here as well. And in here, and in here. These are all just variable names. So basically whatever you're going to use later in your script as a reference. So let's say test part template clone. Just like that. Oh, and if you see me placing semicolons there at the end of the lines, just ignore that. You don't need to know about that right now. It's just a formatting habit that I developed back when I was developing games with a buddy of mine from the UK. So anyway, so we've cloned our part, and we've made a reference to it, cloned part. And so basically think of this as a cloned part, as a duplicate of this test part, only we haven't set its parent yet, so it doesn't exist anywhere in our world yet. It's simply just there. It's in the void, basically, if you will. And so what we're going to do to parent it to workspace is clone part dot parent equals workspace. Or we could do _w, which is our reference to workspace. Now, if you wanted to test this, you'll see that it should spawn exactly where the other one was before we moved it to our replicated storage. And there it is, and it's red. So now let's say we wanted to change the color of it after we've parented it to workspace and after a delay of, let's say, 10 seconds. So to do that, we would do task.wait 10. And what this is doing is it's saying to our task, which is the script, it's saying, or whatever functions we're running in our script, it's telling it to wait 10 seconds here until, this 10 seconds is up, and then it will run whatever code is after it. So let's say we wanted to change it to a green color. We'll do our clone part dot Brit color equals Brit color dot green, just like that. And then you'll see when you play, it'll appear, and then 10 seconds later, it'll go green. So we'll just walk around it for a sec. There you go. Now it's green. And that is a simple, kind of simple version of how you go from a script to your service, then to parts or values or anything you have within the service. So let's do another thing. We've got two bool values, which means it's a true or false value. If I check this box, it's now true. Now it's false. So we're going to make bool value 1 go to true, and we're going to turn bool value 2 to false. As well as we're going to make this int value, which means it's an integer. It could be a negative whole number, or a positive whole number, or 0. So we're going to change that number to 50, for example. So let's do that. First, we're going to need a reference to our values folder here. So let's do local values folder, and you can name it whatever you want here. I'm going to say values folder equals workspace, wait for child, values. Now, let's say right here, we're going to do values folder, wait for child, and then we'll do bool value 1 dot value equals, and you'll see right now it's false, so we're going to change it to true. And then we're going to do values folder, wait for child, bool value 1, I believe. Or no, it was 2. Bool value 2 dot value equals false, because right now it's true. And then we're going to change our int value to 50. So let's do values folder, wait for child, int value 1 dot value equals 50. So you'll see that bool value 2 is set to true, it's check marked. Int value is 0, and bool value 2 is unchecked, so it's false. Now when we play, let's see what happens. You'll see that bool value 1 is now checked, bool value 2 is not checked, and int value is now 50. So again, this is how you go from your script to a service and get children or child parts or values or folders or models, anything within that service. And basically that is a lot of what scripting is going to come down to. At least in these first few episodes of the series, because really this is the core of how things are accessed via scripts. You'll see that this dot here is basically saying, so we have values folder, which is this, wait for the child, bool value 1. So it waits for this, and then this dot is how we got from just the object to its actual value, which is one of its properties. So I hope all this has made sense so far. and I will see you guys in the next video. I'm going to keep these hopefully short and simple for the beginning, just to make it more user-friendly. New users can follow along easily and figure out what they're doing, you know? So yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this simple tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.